In a landmark decision that is already sending shockwaves through Washington and beyond, the Supreme Court has struck down the Trump-era tariffs, upending a central pillar of recent U.S. economic policy and challenging the way America has approached global trade for years. The court ruled that the executive branch overstepped its constitutional authority by imposing tariffs on hundreds of billions in imports, ordering customs to halt collections immediately. This sweeping order affects a vast array of goods, from electronics to steel, and will have immediate consequences for importers and consumers alike. This 6-3 decision is a major check on presidential power in trade, forcing a fundamental rethinking of how the U.S. handles global commerce. Legal experts say it could set a precedent for future limits on executive authority, especially in areas where Congress has traditionally held sway. The tariffs, mainly targeting China and the EU, were controversial. Supporters saw them as protection for American industry, arguing they helped save jobs and revive struggling sectors. Meanwhile, critics blamed them for higher prices, supply chain disruptions, and escalating trade wars that hurt American consumers and businesses. The ruling leaves the Biden administration scrambling to reset trade relations and removes a key Trump policy tool, igniting fierce debate across the political spectrum. Lawmakers are now under pressure to craft new trade legislation, while the White House faces tough questions about its next steps. As the dust settles, the nation faces a new, uncertain trade landscape, with Congress, the White House, and business leaders racing to adapt. The coming months will be critical as America redefines its role in the global economy and seeks to balance protectionism with open markets. Tariffs are essentially taxes placed on imported goods, and they have long been a powerful lever in the world of international trade. By making foreign products more expensive, tariffs are intended to give domestic industries a competitive edge, encouraging consumers to buy locally made goods and supporting homegrown businesses. These taxes are designed to shift the balance in favor of domestic producers, protecting jobs and industries that might otherwise struggle to compete with cheaper imports. The impact of tariffs can be seen everywhere, from the price tags on cars and electronics to the bustling activity on American assembly lines. The Trump administration wielded tariffs as a blunt instrument, using them to pressure countries like China, and to try to breathe new life into U.S. manufacturing. Invoking national security under Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act, the administration argued that protecting certain industries was vital for the country's safety and economic independence. In the short term, some sectors, such as steel, did see a boost, with factories ramping up production and workers returning to jobs that had been disappearing for years. But for many others, especially farmers and manufacturers who rely on global supply chains, the story was very different. Higher costs for imported materials and retaliatory tariffs from other countries led to financial strain, job losses, and uncertainty in rural communities and industrial towns alike. Critics argued that the national security justification was stretched far beyond its original intent, transforming a targeted law into a sweeping economic weapon that affected nearly every corner of the economy. The result was a tangled web of winners and losers. Consumers faced higher prices at the checkout, while some businesses struggled to absorb the increased costs or pass them on to customers. At the same time, America's relationships with key allies became strained as trading partners responded with their own tariffs and diplomatic tensions rose at international summits. The policy ignited fierce debate in Congress and across the country, with some arguing that the benefits to select industries did not justify the widespread economic pain and uncertainty felt by millions of Americans. Now, with the Supreme Court's ruling, the nation faces a critical moment of reckoning, forcing policymakers and the public to confront the true costs, limits, and consequences of using tariffs as a tool of economic conflict in a globalized world. The Supreme Court's decision wasn't about the wisdom of tariffs, but about who holds the power to impose them. Chief Justice Roberts wrote that only Congress, not the President, has the constitutional authority to regulate foreign commerce and levy duties. The majority found the Trump administration's use of national security as a justification far too broad, encroaching on legislative powers. Dissenting justices warned the ruling could weaken the president's ability to respond to global threats, but the majority insisted on clear limits. This decision reasserts Congress's primary role in trade policy and sets a precedent that will constrain future presidents. The message is clear. Major trade actions require explicit legislative approval, restoring a crucial check in the balance of power. The Supreme Court's ruling has thrown the Biden administration's trade strategy into disarray. The White House had relied on Trump-era tariffs as leverage in negotiations, but now must quickly reassess its approach. President Biden expressed concern for American workers and called for an urgent review of trade policy options, including seeking new authority from Congress. The administration's public confidence in winning the case has backfired, adding political embarrassment to strategic uncertainty. Officials are under pressure to restore stability, either by crafting new legislation or finding executive actions that fit within the court's clarified boundaries. The administration faces a delicate balancing act, respecting the court's decision while maintaining a strong stance in global trade. The next steps will shape America's economic direction and its credibility on the world stage. The Supreme Court's decision has killed former President Trump's plan to send $2,000 checks to American families, funded by tariff revenue. The proposal, announced just weeks ago, was meant to showcase the benefits of tariffs and win public support for protectionist policies. With the tariffs struck down, the revenue stream vanished overnight, leaving the plan with no funding and no path forward. Millions who hoped for a financial boost are left disappointed, and Trump loses a key campaign promise. The collapse of the payout plan highlights the risks of building major policies on shaky legal ground. It's a stark reminder of how a single court decision can reshape economic realities for millions. The episode underscores the direct link between legal battles in Washington and the pocketbooks of ordinary Americans. Reaction to the Supreme Court's decision has been sharply divided. Congressional Democrats hailed it as a win for consumers and a check on presidential overreach, while many Republicans decried it as weakening America's ability to fight unfair trade. Business groups, like the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, welcomed the ruling, hoping for more predictable trade policy and relief from supply chain chaos. Many companies struggled with higher costs and lost export markets during the trade war, and now look forward to stability. Internationally, leaders in the EU and China expressed hope for renewed trade talks and a de-escalation of tensions. The decision is expected to shift the tone of global negotiations, opening the door to more cooperation. The ruling's impact is already rippling through Washington and world capitals, reshaping alliances and economic strategies. The financial fallout from the court's decision is massive. Tariffs had become a major revenue source, bringing in over $215 billion in the last fiscal year, money that was central to Trump's payout plan and even floated as a way to chip away at the $38 trillion national debt. With the tariffs gone, that revenue stream disappears, leaving a $200 billion-plus hole in the federal budget. Lawmakers now face tough choices: cut spending, raise other taxes, or borrow more, each with its own political risks. Economists note that tariff revenue was really paid by American consumers and businesses, not foreign exporters. While the Treasury loses income, consumers may see lower prices on imports, though the broader impact on inflation remains uncertain. The episode exposes the volatility of relying on contested policies for fiscal planning. For American families, the end of tariffs could mean lower prices on everyday goods, offering relief from inflation, something that's been straining household budgets for years. From groceries to electronics, families may finally see their dollars stretch a bit further at the checkout line, making it easier to afford essentials and even save for the future. But the promised $2,000 checks are gone, leaving some families feeling let down and uncertain about how they'll make ends meet in the short term. The immediate financial boost many hoped for won't materialize, and for those already struggling, this can be a tough pill to swallow. Businesses that relied on tariff protection may struggle, facing new competition from cheaper imports. Some manufacturers and small businesses could be forced to adapt quickly or risk closing their doors, putting jobs and local economies at risk. On the other hand, companies hurt by trade wars could benefit from a more stable environment, with fewer barriers and more predictable costs. This could mean new opportunities for growth, investment, and hiring, especially in industries that depend on global supply chains. The ruling restores Congress's authority over trade, shifting power away from the executive branch and back to lawmakers. This change could lead to more transparent debates and greater public input on trade policy decisions. It sets the stage for a new era of policymaking that demands compromise and collaboration, as leaders from both parties must now work together to shape America's economic future. The Biden administration must now work with a divided Congress to craft a trade strategy that balances domestic interests with global realities, navigating political divisions and competing priorities. This moment marks the end of aggressive protectionism and the start of a new chapter in U.S. trade policy, one that could redefine America's role in the world economy for years to come. The nation faces tough questions. How do we protect jobs, foster innovation, and ensure American workers aren't left behind as the global economy evolves? And how can the U.S. maintain strong global partnerships while still prioritizing the needs of its own citizens? The Supreme Court didn't provide all the answers, but it clarified the rules, reminding everyone that the path forward must be built on clear laws and shared responsibility. Now, it's up to lawmakers, business leaders, and communities to interpret those rules and put them into action, shaping the next phase of America's economic story. This is a challenge that will require vision, negotiation, and a willingness to look beyond short-term gains for long-term prosperity. The path forward will demand not just policy changes, but a renewed sense of purpose and unity among Americans from all walks of life. Only with commitment, cooperation, and a clear vision can America secure its place in a rapidly changing world.